Warning, this podcast episode contains mature themes and content that may be unsettling and triggering for some audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, guys and dolls. Welcome back to my podcast, Conversations with Zalia. I'm your host, Zalia Lorraine, and today is Sunday, December 8th, 2024. Now, before I get into the topic of this podcast episode, I just want to let you guys know that the reason I haven't uploaded an episode in so long is because I was working on my YouTube channel, which is in the link on my podcast. It's called Conversations with Zalia Podcast, and they're pretty much video versions of my podcast episode. I've been getting like 1,300 views so far, so be sure to check out my YouTube channel and also leave a like, follow, subscribe, and pretty much leave comments. So today we're going to review the TV show City of God, The Fight Rages On, or Cidade de Deus, a luta na para. And City of God, for those wondering, City of God, The Fight Rages On is pretty much a television series sequel based on the iconic 2002 Brazilian film, in which most of the cast reprised their roles. It pretty much the whole premise in City of God, The Fight Never Ends, is 2 decades after City of God, Buscape, who goes by his first name Wilson, he has become a successful photographer, and he decides to return back to City of God to do some photography assignment where he catches up with his friend Barbatino, who's now, or Stringy as he's called in the English subtitles, who's now running for a city councilor. But the violence winds up returning again to when Braddock, from the first movie, pretty much ignites a gang war over a corner, and all hell breaks loose. And before I recap the show, I'm going to give you a quick recap of the movie for those wondering. And considering I'm discussing plot points and character deaths from both the movie and the series, there will be a spoiler alert. So if you haven't watched the movie or show, I recommend you not listen to this podcast episode until you watch both. If you have no interest in watching the movie and or show, then listen to this or you already watched both, then you can listen to this podcast episode. And also, there will be a content warning since it will discuss dark and mature themes, so listener discretion is advised. Also, another thing to mention, you can listen to this episode on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Pocket Cast, and other platforms where my podcast is available on. And now you can watch this episode on YouTube when it will be uploaded, probably tomorrow or tonight or tomorrow. So be sure to check it out. So to give you a quick recap of the movie, the main character is a young boy who lives in a favela. His name is Buscape, who has a hobby of photography like me and dreams of becoming a photographer and making it out of favela. And the whole plot is him pretty much being the side. He's pretty much, how to describe it, a side character. A main character and a side character at the same time. He's pretty much what bears witness to the whole gang war, with the main antagonist being Lil Zay, who was the tag along to the Tinder Trio, which was a trio of bandits that consisted of Shaggy, Benny's brother, Goose, Buscape's brother. And I'm just going to note this right there. For the sake of clarity, even though he refers to himself by his real name in the show, I'm going to refer to him as Buscape for just simplicity's sake. And another friend of theirs named Clipper. And long story short, the trio, they wound disbanding after a robbery gone wrong, which Lil Zay sabotaged. With Clipper finding God, Shaggy getting killed, Benny running away from the police, while he and his girlfriend Berenice try to leave town, and Goose, who disappears after running away by getting caught smashing Shorty's wife, who gets murdered. Though we later find out that Lil Zay pretty much unalived them for pretty much making fun of him, and pretty much Lil Zay takes over the hood alongside Benny, but Benny winds up having a conscience after dating Angelica, Buscape's crush, and decides to leave the gang life, but winds up getting killed by Blackie, who tried to kill Lil Zay. Then a turf war starts between Lil Zay and Knockout Ned after Lil Zay grapes Cynthia, Knockout Ned's girlfriend, and wind up murdering Knockout Ned's family. Like, there's a whole turf war that takes up pretty much the majority, the second half of the movie, with Lil Zay becoming more unhinged after Benny's death. In the gang, they wind up finding fame thanks to Buscape photographing them and it landing in the papers, though Buscape thought that he would have gotten in trouble. And the conclusion was pretty much the gang war ends with Knockout Ned gets killed by the son of a security guard that he killed in one of his robberies. Carrot, the dude that was helping Lil Zay, Knockout Ned, gets killed. And then Lil Zay winds up broke, as it turns out that he was... Pretty much he was paying the corrupt cops money to keep them on their payroll, and he gets killed by the Rents, who plan on taking over the whole neighborhood. And that's my quick recap of the movie, and I probably missed a few things from that recap, just though I was just going by memory. So if Rose want to criticize me, just watch a review of the movie, or better yet, just watch the movie. And now let's get into the main event, which is the recap. So it's the first episode. I'm just going to tell it. I'm not going to break it up now by episode by episode. I'm just going to tell the whole story. So bear with me. Buscape, 20 years later, it's 2004, and Buscape has become a successful photographer working for this newspaper company. And he decides to return back to Cidade de Deus, where we get flashback. We get flashbacks and callbacks from the previous movie, which is common in the series. While returning to Cidade de Deus, we're reintroduced and introduced to new characters. The first character we're introduced is Barbatino, Buscape's friend from the first movie, who was also not part of the gang life, who's now in politics and running for city councilor. Then we meet Berenice, who left City of God for a few years but came back, and she's pretty much the community mother. Cynthia not counting Ned's girlfriend, who runs a community center and has a son named Delano whose paternity is vague, and I'll leave it at that. And then we get the new characters, which is Curio, the neighborhood drug lord, played by Marcos Pabera, and this is like the third time he's ever appeared on my podcast since I did two past reviews of Shays the Charm and Camarigado. Like, I'm starting to have a Marcos Palmera obsession. Oh my god. But back to the story. But Curio, he was the drug lord that pretty much took over when Lose died. And pretty much, despite him being the lead drug lord, he has been keeping the peace in City of God, pretty much copacetic, along with Stringy and Cynthia. Then there's Leica, Buscape's estranged daughter, who lives with her grandmother, Natalina, Buscape's mom, who was never mentioned in the first movie. And Leica's pretty much backstory with Buscape was Buscape's mother was a woman that Leica's mother was pretty much a woman that Buscape pumped and dumped, who wound up dying when Leica was young, and pretty much Buscape left her in the care of her grandmother, Natalina. And Leica is a up-and-coming funk karaoke rapper. And for those asking what funk karaoke is, for non-Brazilian listeners out there, funk karaoke is pretty much it's pretty much Brazilian hip-hop that has that only talks about life in favelas, but has very sexually charged lyrics. And that's my best explanation. And then on the political side, we have Reginaldo, aka Melonhead, the police officer for the first movie, who's now got into politics, which is not all that surprising. The corrupt police officer to corrupt politician pipeline is very common. And he has a son named Israel, who's also a politician as well, and always butts heads with Barbatino. Then there's Junior, who's Curio's son, who pretty much is second in command. And Delano, Cynthia's son, who works as a karate instructor, but also works as a police officer, which winds up leading to a lot of conflict. But pretty much, because already there's a lot going on, I'm just going to discuss the main plotline first, which is, and not there's some elements of the side plot, which is, at the beginning in the episode, everyone's preparing for Curio's daughter's birthday party. It was either Amanda or Nerva's daughter's. She's having I forgot what age she's turned, but she's having a carnival themed birthday party. And one of the people that winds up attending the party is Braddock, who not only just got out of jail, but has gotten involved with Jerusa, who's a very shady woman. And during the party, Braddock asked Curio if he can have his old spot, but Curio rejects. Temperate says that Junior occupies that spot, and this pretty much kicks off the whole gang war, further instigated by Jerusa shooting one of Curio's men. And things wind up escalating to the point where everything in Cidade de Deus is shut down. and everyone's at home and all that. Meanwhile, Wilson, who's working with a journalist from Spain named Ligia, who came back to Brazil to do an NGO. He has a conversation with her daughter where his daughter, Lika, accuses him of selling out to the white man, essentially. And by exploiting what's going on in the favelas, which causes Wilson to pretty much have a conscience. I can't really describe it. But then it attends to the gang war to the point where PDQ, Bernice's boyfriend and a former paramilitary man, wants to join Curio's side. But Bernice is pretty much against this, which is justifiable considering the last person that was involved with, who was part of the gang life, wound up dying. And also in the episode, Braddock pretty much tries to kill Curio, but can't bring himself to kill him, so he winds up shooting him in the shoulder after having a flashback of pretty much happier times. Namely, Braddock and Curio had a close bond with Curio and his family to the point they even consider him his own. And PDQ, in spite of what against Bernice's wishes, pretty much joins Curio's side. And they want to almost somewhat succeeding. But Jerusa, being Jerusa, she pretty much has a plan to pretty much take down Curio, which her plan is she pretty much intimidates her auntie to pretty much selling out Curio by threatening to harm his family. You know, the typical villain thing. If you don't do what I say, I will harm the family. And Zero Auntie writes out Curio, which leads to Curio, PDQ, and his son Junior being ambushed while they're returning home. And Curio getting killed right in front of his family, which is foul. And what makes it even more fouler was that Curio was carrying the photos that he just got from his daughter's birthday party that he got from Wilson. And him dying right in front of his family and his wife Marta's arms. And speaking of Wilson and the journalist and Ligia, they're pretty much working on this assignment in which they cover atrocities committed by the government in politics. And they get intimidated by a henchman for Melonhead, who, as I stated earlier, works as a politician. And during their assignment, one of the people they got testimonies from wound up getting killed. And when they try to collect testimonies when they try to have a talk with a priest, the henchman dude, dehumanizes them by dehumanize them by not only referring to them as that word that should not be named, but says that if they're going to talk to the priest, they're going to have to talk in his presence, which had to tick them off very badly. And also during this whole mission, oh my god, sorry. Buscape finds out that Jerusa is in cahoots with the government or the politicians or the corrupt politicians. Namely, she's in a relationship with Israel, who's Melonhead's son, and she's also in fact, in the first episode, she's shown meeting with the arms dealer, whose name I forgot. I didn't record his name. Danny or Dennis or whatever his name was. And pretty much, she's been working with the corrupt government to pretty much instigate a turf war just so... Yeah. Kind of like, what Jerusa's doing is on par with the COINTELPRO thing from what COINTELPRO from the 1960s, 70s. That's the best way to explain it, though that may be a false comparison. But the next episode, but then there's Kurio's funeral, and everyone is like blocked from attending his funeral as a reason where to avoid where only his family attended his funeral. And during the narration, Buscape talked about how even in spite of Curio being a drug lord or a crime lord, people had respected him or didn't hate him because he was the lesser of two evils. And then, as mentioned in the first episode, he did help keep some peace when after the turf war between Lil Zay and Knockout Ned. And then during the funeral, Braddock had the freaking audacity to pull a Bishop / Big Red and attend the funeral of the man he killed. And tried to, and not only that, but tried to console Marta, but Marta pretty much was having none of it. Marta didn't fall for Braddock's BS. And with Curio's death, Braddock pretty much takes over the slums. Pretty much takes over City of God. And when Braddock takes over, pretty much people, everyone in the neighborhood they pretty much don't accept him. And Braddock isn't helping his case. Like, the one particular scene, there were two particular scenes. The first particular scene is the scene where they're having a little samba party, and during the samba party, he kills Zero Anzi for causing Kurio's death, which is, even though Zero Anzi, he did a traitor's move, in my opinion, thinking that he was going to get promoted, and he sold out Curio for a promotion. He gets killed by Braddock to quote-unquote avenge what happened to his quote-unquote father, even though Braddock and Jerusalem wanted to have Curio killed in the first place. So that goes to show you there is no honor amongst thugs. And then the second incident is when Cynthia, who has a music program in the community center, Braddock tries to win her over by giving the kids at the community center new instruments and offer them to perform at Cindylandia. But when Cynthia politely rejected the new instruments, he crashes out and breaks their instruments. And all of this is filmed by Jerusa, which winds up catching the attention of the news. And Jerusa, unbeknownst to him, who's pretty much a goose with the government, she's pretty much playing both sides. And tensions get worse to the point where the police have stepped in, and Delano, who's working as a police officer, pretty much is dispatched to the City of God, where he gets in conflict with a co-worker who killed two unarmed men, the same men he told to drop their guns, which causes the said co-worker to bring up his parentage. But during the police being in City of God, there's a big gunfight between Braddock and his crew and the police, which Bertino gets caught in the crosshairs and gets unalived. And during the funeral, the police are doing what the police do, and even though they're trying to pretty much bury Barbatino, which leads to Bernice chastising the police, which winds up getting attention of the media, and the media winds up blaming Braddock for what happened to Barbatino's death, though they never specify which bullet killed him. And since Barbara was running for city councilor, they had to choose someone in his place, and they wound up choosing Berenice, who pretty much gets encouraged by Cynthia to pretty much run in Barbatino's place. And speaking of Cynthia, Delano has a chat with Cynthia about his biological father. And Cynthia pretty much gave a vague response, which was, "I'm your father, mother, or grandmother," which to me screams vague, but then again, concerned for that what happened to Cynthia that's her way of probably explaining it to him, but they never specify who fathered Delano, but we'll probably want to find out in the second season. And also, I forgot to mention earlier, PDQ, he was also injured in that ambush, which led to him losing his leg. And Berenice, who found out that PDQ was working with Curio thanks to Braddock, she not only breaks up with him, but she winds up painfully reporting him to the police. And Leica and her friends, they get offered a record deal, but they wind up rejecting the record deal because of the crappy contract. And her friends, they all get angry at her because she didn't want to accept the record deal, which, considering how a lot of artists in the past and present got screwed about record deals, Leica was in her right to very much reject the record deal. And Leica pretty much winds up creating a campaign song for Berenice, who pretty much winds up winning everyone over with her charisma. Who winds up winning everyone over her campaign, but she gets threatened by Braddock, who has Littlefoot, the same Littlefoot that got killed, that got shot in the foot by Lil Zay in the first movie. As I said earlier, there's a lot of callbacks and references and flashbacks to the first movie. And he's not revealed to be Littlefoot until they cut to a flashback in regards to how to punish a kid that was caught stealing from the community center. But anyways, back to the story. Bernie, she winds up to pretty much got the final episode. Legia and Wilson, they can't make the report because they feel it's not legitimate in them coercing the arms dealer to revealing the tea. So they wind up going to an old journalist friend of Buscape named Rogerio, who pretty much spilled some tea and revealed Jerusa's main motivation. Namely, Jerusa's dad wound up going to jail for drugs thanks to Curio, and that was why she did what she did. Like, everything is all connected, and pretty much the report gets published in the news, which winds up affecting Melanhead and Israel's campaign, and also gets Jerusa exposed. And Braddock finds out that Jerusa was pretty much is pretty much heartbroken, essentially. And also, Buscape and Ligia's lives are in danger due to the report. And Bernie, she winds up running for city councilor. She winds up winning in 9th place, while Israel pretty much wins in 3rd place. Which means expect some more shenanigans from him in the next season. Then in a full circle revenge moment, Junior unalives Braddock as revenge for Curio's death, with Braddock pretty much having to live out the finding about Jerusa's betrayal. And Jerusa wind up earlier calls Israel to pretty much end the partnership between them, knowing that they're now exposed. And Junior is crying because he killed his brother, because, as I mentioned before, and Curio treated Braddock like his own son, and which him having to pretty much getting dragged by one of his cohorts. And Wilson is about to take Legia to the airport when they get ambushed by someone hired by Melanhead, who winds up shooting at Legia. And more likely, I don't know if Leisha is dead or not, but it's probably going to be confirmed within the next season. And everyone is celebrating Bernice's win, and that's the end for now. And here and now are my final thoughts. My final thoughts is I know a lot of people were hesitant about it because it's a TV sequel to a classic movie that came out 2 decades ago. And there has been this trend of making sequels that nobody asked for to classic movies that came out 2, 3, 4, or 5 decades ago. Which I'm the same way too, concerning the fact how a lot of these turned out. Like, I got to hook up to Coming to America, Undercover Brothers, Save Last Dance 2, etc., etc. But it was a good series. It made use of the continuity, and I enjoyed that they were able to pretty much get most of the cast members from the first movie back. And also enjoyed how in the first episode, even though everything went haywire again, they were able to show how life in the favelas isn't more than just struggling gang violence. There's a lot of good in the favelas too, like with Cynthia's community center and a lot of the small businesses there. And I really enjoyed, my favorite MPV characters at the moment are Buscape, Berenice, Barbertino, and I guess you could say Curio, because Curio, as much of a drug lord he was able to try to keep the peace during the city of God. And not to mention, it probably isn't that shocking that Curio's character gets killed off because it's a known cliche for a TV show or movie to have a big actor in part of cast only for them to get killed off halfway to the movie or at the beginning of the series. Like, for example, Sean Bean, even though it's a known fact that Sean Bean tends to die in his movies, he was in Game of Thrones for the first season and he gets decapitated right before the season ends. And this applies to Marcos Palmera. He's only in the show for half the season and he gets killed off in the 3rd episode violently in front of his family. And even with criticisms, I barely don't have any criticisms as far as I know. In regards to what I would like to expect from season 2, I would like to expect some expansion in regards to some more expansion to the City of God lore, and also I would like to see what became of Angelica, since the last time we see her in the movie, Benny got killed in front of her. Like, I wonder if Alice Braga is available to do the 2nd season, because I'm wondering what became of Angelica after the events of the movie. And also, the one thing I also liked was that how we saw what became of Berenice and Cynthia's fates. Now they pretty much, they're well respected within the City of God. With Berenice becoming the community mother and running her own beauty shop, and Cynthia running the community center, trying to pretty much being peacekeepers. And Berenice and Buscape storylines, they were my favorite storylines in the series. Overall, it was a good series, and I really enjoyed it very much. I put it right up there with the movie. They did a good job pretty much making references and callbacks and nods to the movie without being over the top with it. But anyways, that's it for my podcast episode. In the next podcast episode, I'm going to do an anime arc, this time on Pina's love arc. Namely, how Pina was done dirty with the ending, and pretty much how black love stories and novellas are handled in Pina's how I view Pina as a black American, how I view Pina's character arc as a black woman. And then a get to know me podcast episode, and also an episode tackling telenovela cliches. So stay tuned for that. It was nice talking to you all. I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.